Microsoft just mass migrated over 780,000 of their own users to Linux. And no, Linux didn't do some crazy marketing push. Zorin OS didn't run a Super Bowl ad. What happened is that Microsoft, step by step, decision by decision, built the most effective Linux marketing campaign in history.
And the weirdest part? They didn't even realize they were doing it.
Let me put this in perspective. Zorin OS 18 hit 2 million downloads in under 3 months. More than 78% of those downloads came from Windows machines. That's over 1.5 million people sitting on a Windows PC, actively choosing to download a Linux distribution. And Zorin isn't even the only one seeing this. Steam's hardware survey shows Linux climbing to 3.58% of all installs. That number sounds small, until you realize what it took to get there. Years of work from Valve, from Canonical, from the KDE team, from hundreds of open source contributors. And then Microsoft comes along and does more for Linux adoption in 6 months than the entire open source community did in 6 years. So here's what I want to break down, because everyone is talking about why users are leaving Windows. The TPM 2.0 thing, the ads, the bloatware, yeah, we know. But nobody is connecting the dots on how Microsoft systematically, almost surgically, eliminated every single reason people had to stay. And that's the real story here. Let me walk you through the timeline, because when you see it laid out, it's absurd. Step 1. The breakup. October 14th, 2025. Microsoft officially ends support for Windows 10. Now, Windows 10 wasn't just any operating system. When it launched, Microsoft literally called it, quote, the last version of Windows. That was the pitch. You're done upgrading. This is it. And people believed them. People built their workflows around Windows 10. Businesses standardized on it. And then Microsoft said, actually, no. You need Windows 11 now. And by the way, your perfectly working computer, it can't run it.
What?
Step 2. The hardware wall. And that brings us to the TPM 2.0 requirement. This is where it gets interesting, because this is not just a tech spec. This is a business decision that backfired spectacularly. So Windows 11 requires a Trusted Platform Module 2.0 security chip. Microsoft says it's for security. And sure, TPM 2.0 does enable things like Secure Boot and BitLocker encryption. That's real. But here's the problem. Hundreds of millions of PCs that run Windows 10 perfectly fine. PCs with Intel Core i7 processors, 16 gigs of RAM, solid-state drives, they can't upgrade because they don't have this one chip. We're talking about an estimated 400 million PCs left without an upgrade path. Think about this from the user's perspective. You have a laptop that works great. You're told it's no longer supported. Your only official option is to buy new hardware. Or you Google free alternative to Windows, and the first thing you see is a Linux distribution that runs on literally any hardware. No TPM required. No hardware restrictions. Microsoft basically told 400 million people, your computer is obsolete. And Linux said, no, it's not. Come here. Step 3. The Copilot invasion. But it gets worse, because even for the people who did upgrade to Windows 11, Microsoft made sure to annoy them too. Microsoft's AI assistant, Copilot, is now embedded in everything. And I mean, everything. It's in the taskbar. It's in settings. They put it in Notepad. Notepad, the text editor that people have been using since 1985 to write quick notes and edit config files. Microsoft looked at Notepad and said, you know what this needs? Artificial intelligence. They put Copilot in Microsoft Paint, in Edge, in the File Explorer. The president of Windows, Pavan Davuluri, publicly said he wants to make Windows an agentic operating system with AI at the forefront. People literally coined a new term for this, microslop, a combination of Microsoft and AI slop. That's how frustrated the user base got. And the head of AI at Microsoft went on X, formerly Twitter, and publicly expressed confusion about why people weren't embracing Copilot. Let me say that again. The person in charge of AI at one of the biggest tech companies in the world went on social media and said, "I don't understand why people don't love this." That is how disconnected the decision-making was. Step 4. Ads inside a paid product. Now, here's where a normal company would pause. They'd look at the backlash and think, okay, maybe we should dial it back. But Microsoft went the other direction. Windows 11 now has advertisements in the Start menu. Let that sink in. You're paying for a product, either through a license or through the hardware you bought, and the Start menu has ads in it. There are promotional pop-ups for Microsoft 365. There are suggestions to use Microsoft Edge that border on harassment. If you search for Google Chrome using Bing and Edge, Edge literally throws up a warning trying to convince you not to download Chrome. The setup process for a new Windows 11 PC requires a Microsoft account and an internet connection. And during that setup, it tries to sell you OneDrive, Microsoft 365, and Game Pass. Meanwhile, you install Zorin OS or Linux Mint or pop_OS, and there are 0 ads, 0 prompts, 0 upsells. It installs in 5 minutes, asks you nothing you don't need to answer, and stays out of your way. While Windows now feels like a product, Linux still feels like an operating system, something that's actually yours. Step 5. The final barrier falls, and then there's the one that sealed it. Gaming. For years, the #1 reason people stayed on Windows was gaming. I would switch to Linux, but I can't play my games. That was the argument, and it was valid. Up until about 2 years ago, because Valve, the company behind Steam, built the Steam Deck, which runs on SteamOS, which is Linux. And to make that work, they developed Proton, a compatibility layer forked from Wine that lets Windows games run on Linux. And it works shockingly well. Cyberpunk 2077 runs on Linux. Baldur's Gate 3 was developed with the Steam Deck in mind. AMD's GPU drivers on Linux are now excellent because of Valve's investment. NVIDIA support has improved significantly with open-source kernel modules. So the last major barrier, the one thing keeping millions of people locked into the Windows ecosystem, is basically gone. And Microsoft didn't counter this. They didn't make Windows gaming better or more compelling. They were too busy putting Copilot in Notepad. Now, I want to be clear about something. The 780,000 number, the 1.5 million downloads from Windows machines, these are downloads, not confirmed permanent switches. We don't actually know how many of those people installed Zorin OS and stayed. Some probably tried it for a day and went back. Some downloaded it out of curiosity. But here's why the number still matters. It represents a massive shift in awareness. Linux is no longer some obscure thing that only developers and server administrators use. Regular people, people who have used Windows their entire lives, are now actively searching for alternatives. And that is entirely Microsoft's doing. And the timing of Zorin OS 18 releasing on the exact same day as Windows 10 end of support, October 14th, 2025, that wasn't a coincidence. Zorin's developers saw the opportunity that Microsoft created, and they executed perfectly. They built OneDrive integration directly into the file manager. They added progressive web app support so you can run Microsoft 365, Google Docs, even Photoshop Web as native-feeling applications. They made a specific installation image for NVIDIA GPU users because they know that's a common pain point. Zorin didn't have to convince people that Windows was bad. Microsoft did that themselves. All Zorin had to do was be there when people started looking for something else. That's incredible marketing by Microsoft for Linux. So let me connect all of this. Microsoft ended support for Windows 10, told 400 million users their hardware was obsolete, forced AI into every corner of the operating system against user demand, put ads inside a paid product, and did all of this while the biggest barrier to Linux, gaming, was being demolished by Valve. Every single one of those decisions, individually, would push some users away. But combined, in this order, in this time frame, it's like Microsoft wrote a step-by-step guide called How to Make Your Users Try Linux, and then followed it perfectly. Now, if you're watching this and you're thinking about making the switch yourself, here's what I'd actually recommend. Don't nuke Windows tomorrow. Download Zorin OS 18 or Linux Mint and create a live USB. You can boot into Linux directly from the USB drive without touching your Windows installation. Zero risk. Spend a weekend with it. See if your workflow survives. If it does, then dual boot. Keep Windows on a small partition for that one app you might need and run Linux as your daily driver. That's the smart way to do it. But whether you switch or not, the bigger takeaway here is this. Microsoft is no longer competing with Linux on product quality. They're competing with their own decisions. And right now, they're losing. If you want to see which Linux distro is actually the best fit for Windows users in 2026, I'm breaking that down in my next video. I tested 5 of them head-to-head, so you don't have to.